Hinata wanted to score some, but Jin his nemesis. Every time he's into some girl, well, that girl is into Jin. Jin is the Chad, the one girl's desire and want, and Hinata is your average you. In the end, girls wanted Jin, and Hinata got drunk to forget about his moron face. Hinata was so sad to the point where he wanted to turn into a cute blonde lowly girl. That's when the goddess appeared and shot them both to transfer them into this world. Not only that, but that dumb bitch also turned them into their ideal form. And now they need to defeat the demon lord. If they do it, she will grant them any wish. Hinata gets excited, but Jin thinks this is a scam, especially because his bro can now participate in female sports. The goddess becomes so angry with Jin that she ends up casting a spell on the two. She basically shows off some visual effects and claims they will now have a reason to save the world and break this curse as soon as possible. The goddess raps away and Jin tries to understand the situation until he looks at Hinata. In that second, everything stops, as if he's looking at the most beautiful girl in the world. That's when he accidentally mumbles that he finds her cute.
Ha! Gay!
Hinata knows he looks cute as hell, but now they need to figure a solution. But everything changes in the next second because she also gets distracted by Jin's appearance. She starts to understand why women only like 6-foot men and admits she thought Jin was cool. On the other hand, Jin can't stop thinking about how cute and slender Hinata would look in the shower. That's when they realize what their curse is about. The goddess literally pulled an, if you don't save the world, then you're gay. But hey, no homo, I guess. The curse will make them fall in love with each other. But let's be real, if you can't kiss your homie, is he really a homie? Yet, at that same time, they agree on one thing. They need to break the curse before they fall for each other and embrace the rainbow. However, Hinata is a lot more interested in finding out if Jin's into him. Hinata reminds him that he tried to riz her out, but Jin calmly denies it. He's a Sigma and would never compliment a woman's looks.
Okay.
They engage in a contest to find out who's the real bottom of the two, but they get interrupted by a big, fuzzy bear. The bear starts chasing them, and Hinata thinks it's cute at first, but it suddenly transforms into a monster. The monster begins shooting beams at them, but Jin dodges them. The main problem is when Jin starts getting distracted by how soft and delicate Hinata feels. This distraction causes them to fall inside each other, off a cliff. The monster follows them, but Jin is done running. He has never been afraid in his whole life. Why should he be afraid now? He decides to face the monster and gives it a random punch. That random punch is opening a hole, and unfortunately, it's not Hinata's.
What? What the f?
Jin thinks this is all because of working out biceps every day, but Hinata thinks they all got new stats. The monster is still breathing and tries to shoot a beam at Hinata. Jin manages to block it because of bicep day and gets an X message on top of his head. A stat screen appears. They found out Jin is already level 70. Not only that, but Hinata is level 1 with the hero class. Jin is a high-level skilled fighter, while Hinata, well, she's a strong and independent woman. Jin then tries out one of his skills, and a door suddenly appears in front of them. Turns out this is the door to Hinata's apartment. The two are transported into Hinata's house. But why does Jin have this skill? Turns out he wanted to send Hinata back home before the goddess summoned them into this one. And since that was his wish, the goddess made it happen. Hinata finds Jin's skill useful because electricity and water are free. Jin is glad they won't have to worry about food and shelter either. Hinata points out that they actually have a food problem because her refrigerator is now empty. Hinata changes into her sister's clothes, and they head to a nearby village. Hinata pretends to be a daughter of a rich family and Jin is her attendant.
Bruh.
Jin suddenly notices large clouds of smoke coming from the village. The villagers start running past Jin because they're being attacked by bandits. Jin thinks it could be Hinata because one of her passive skills is to effortlessly create trouble. Inside the village, Hinata trips and a bandit walks towards her. She innocently apologizes for bothering and the bandit falls in love with her.
Oh Lord, again. Nothing new, nothing changed, same.
The bandit asks for her hand in marriage, promising to quit being a robber just for her. Another bandit comes and immediately falls in love with Hinata as well.
Stop it. Get some help.
Hinata realizes that it must be one of her passive skills, which is make everyone fall madly in love with her irresistible beauty. The bandits start fighting over Hinata. Jin arrives and finds Hinata crying and begging for the bandits to stop fighting over her. Hinata is so beautiful that her presence alone was enough to make the bandits take out themselves. And from that moment on, the villagers start to worship Hinata for taking down the bandits and give her a pride parade.
Ah, here we go again.
Hinata realizes that it will be troublesome if that happens every time they go out and thinks they need to hide her face. Jin can't resist her cuteness, but he hides his feelings. Hinata gets curious why her beauty is not working on Jin. Jin casually responds that it's because he knows Hinata is actually gay. Sorry, I mean a guy. Hinata checks Jin's stats and thinks he is too intelligent to fall for her charms. The bandits warn the two that they are just scouts and their main force are preparing to attack. Jin realizes that their base must be nearby. He calls on Hinata and the bandits immediately spill the information. The two head to the bandits' base at night. Jin checks on the enemies and sees they are weaker than him. He instructs Hinata to just stay at home and cook because he can deal with it alone. However, Hinata refuses to let Jin face danger alone. Jin gets reminded of Hinata's unreasonable kindness. Jin is raised to do things alone due to his mature attitude. Unlike Jinguji, who only does what he is told, Hinata is someone who always takes matters into his own hands for others when necessary. For a short while, Jin starts to think he wants to marry Hinata. He quickly wakes up from his thoughts and realizes something is wrong with him. Jin refuses to take another look at Hinata because he is starting to find her really cute. He decides to use Hinata as bait. The bandits start to gather in front of the two. They notice how beautiful Hinata is and they try to capture her and take her to the basement.
Yeah, boy.
However, Jin starts taking them out easily. Soon, the villagers come to help them fight the bandits. Jingujai stops the villagers from getting close to Hinata. Hinata scolds Jin for acting weird towards the villagers. Hinata demands Jin to admit that he also likes her. Jin tries to deny it, but a status that he is charmed appears above him. He tries to explain desperately to Hinata that he doesn't fancy blonde girls who were once dudes. However, Jin loses control of himself and gets charmed. He compliments Hinata's hair because it shines so much it lights up his face as if it's the sun.
Ha! Gay!
Hinata gets creeped out and slaps the out of Jin, but she now realizes how powerful her passive skill is. Jin points out to Hinata that he's now cured, but also reveals he never felt like this before. He's afraid to smash a homie and suggests they have to come up with a countermeasure. Hinata ignores all of it and just cares about the treasure they got from the bandits. A villager offers them to take all the treasures as payment for their services. Hinata replies that she only wants new clothes. Hinata notices a fire in the forest, but Jin is thinking how embarrassing it feels to be charmed by Hinata.
Gay!
Later, Jin is thinking what he's going to do with the fur of the bear he defeated. The kids praise him, but a random dude reveals Jin defeated some sort of guardian deity of the forest. Jin then decides to wake Hinata up, just to find this dude acting like he still has a sausage after taking a shower.
Bruh.
Jin shares that he asked the villagers about the demon lord, but they know nothing about it. He thinks they need to find a good timing to leave the village and go to the next bigger town to gather more information about the demon lord. Hinata asks about the nearby forest fire and finds out it was extinguished by the rain. They head outside and they overhear some elves complaining to the villagers about the fire in their forest and the loss of their guardian deity. They want the villagers to hand them the criminals, otherwise they will destroy the village. Jin and Hinata rush back inside before the elves notice them, but they come up with a plan and talk to the elves. Jin just claims he didn't have a choice other than burning the forest. But he also had no choice with the guardian of the forest. It was either kill or be killed. Hinata wants Jin to stop being arrogant and just apologize, but he refuses. Lu, one of the elves, starts to notice Hinata's extraordinary beauty. However, she claims that she is far more beautiful than her. The elves worship the goddess of love and beauty, and their long ears are proof of their devotion. Jin coldly responds that everyone who follows the goddess are clowns. Lu demands the two to confess their sins and beg for forgiveness. Hinata is so beta that she gets excited with the thought that they will be forgiven just by simply kneeling. However, Jin stops her. He turns to Lu and declares that he will never acknowledge her beauty because he's not interested in any girls who can't match Hinata's beauty.
Okay.
Lu and Hinata get into a competition of who is more beautiful. Lu asks the villagers to pick a side and they all choose Hinata. Hinata compliments Lu out of sympathy, but Jin stops her. He advises Lu to change her faith because her goddess clearly isn't blessing her. Lu gets angry because Jin is always making offensive comments towards the goddess. She thinks they worship an evil cult and turned the villagers against the goddess. She accuses them of intentionally burning down the forest and taking out their guardian deity, so she decides to put an end to their evil. Lu decides to strike Jin with her bow and magical arrow, but the two dodge it. Hinata takes Jin to run with her to the forest and hide behind a tree. The elves head to the forest to look for the two, but Jin grabs a rock on the ground and throws it right on Lu's hair. Lu's hair gets cut in a single strike. She sits at the ground and cries because her hair meant her identity as an elf. The two exit the forest quietly while the elves comfort Lu. Later at night, Hinata throws a tantrum about being so tired of traveling on foot. Jin still has some logic, because he's the guy, explains that they won't reach the next town unless they keep walking for another 3 days. Jin gives up and calls it a day and decides to go home to eat dinner. Hinata invites Jin to eat under the starry sky. She praises the delicious taste of his meat.
What? What the f?
Well, that's until she realizes it is the meat of the guardian deity. She then suggests they try out different things out in the new world. But Jin notices Hinata is drunk and he's starting to say some weird Hinata denies it, because it's impossible to get drunk with 1 can of beer. However, Jin realizes that it must be because her current body can't hold beer. Hinata is so drunk that she thinks they can do everything because they are in another world. She starts running into the forest in pursuit of freedom, forcing Jin to look for him. He realizes Hinata has changed since his pair moved to upstairs. He is interrupted when he hears Hinata calling him. Turns out Hinata was captured by a plant monster, and Jin cannot do anything about it. Yes, our boy is charmed by his homie.
Okay.
The plant monster also gets a hold of Jin's legs. He asks Hinata if there is something she could say that will shock him, and for some reason, Hinata yells that she hates bell peppers, and for some other random reason, Jin is shocked because an adult should like bell peppers. He immediately takes out the plant monster and Hinata levels up. But at the same time, she's pissed that her level is still so low while Jin's level is so high. Jin and Hinata head to the next town, but Hinata is not excited at all. She leveled up, but her stats remained the same. Well, not the same, her luck stat increased.
Okay.
Hinata forgets about everything and gets excited when she sees a large bustling town ahead. Hinata loves lively places like this, but her excitement fades when Jin puts a paper bag over her fucking head. He wants to prevent a pandemic of guys falling in love with another guy. Jin heads to a merchant to sell the guardian deity's skin while Hinata sulks in a corner. After a while, the two visit a weapon shop, and Hinata insists they buy a huge sword because he misses his small dagger.
Emotional, damn it!
They'll need it to cut and fight off monsters. Jin is reluctant to grant Hinata's request, but he eventually agrees. They go to another weapon shop, where Jin asks the merchant for a whetstone and a knife. Hinata tries to act cute to convince Jin to buy her the sword she wants, but instead, she gets a punch from him. The merchant notices Hinata's covered face and asks if they are traveling incognito. He offers them a hair ornament enchanted to prevent unwanted attention. Jin seems curious, but they leave quickly when they hear how expensive it is. Hinata suggests using her charm to negotiate a lower price for the hair ornament. Hinata removes the paper bag and returns to the shop. She acts cute towards the merchant, and he immediately gets enchanted and offers her the entire shop. Jin tries to intervene, but it's too late because all the villagers have now seen Hinata's face, and they all have fallen for her. Jin uses his skill and tosses Hinata right back to his house. He decides to buy the ornament because it will help Hinata go outside without causing trouble. He returns to Hinata's house and finds out she has another idea. She thinks they can avoid trouble if Jin simply does all the travel while he's home, and simply use the ability to summon the door when is needed. Yet, Jin understands what's really going on. This little is a lazy moron who doesn't want to walk. Jin starts pointing out so many things that could go wrong with her plan. Like, this is his skill, if he dies, how can Hinata return to the real world? He then hands her the hair ornament and go back into town. They can feel relieved because nobody is now looking at Hinata. She's just average, again. The two wander freely without anyone bothering them, but Jin knows they are being followed. Soon, two of the previous bandits confront them for flirting in the broad daylight. One of the bandits expresses his love for Hinata.
Oh Lord. Again.
Jin realizes that the people will still get charmed if they become aware of her. A man in cloak suddenly appears between them and easily defeats the bandits. He asks Jin and Hinata if they are heroes too. The man introduces himself as Schwartz and reveals he came from the same world as Jin and Hinata. He explains how he is a hero and got this legendary sword from a goddess. Yet, the two ignore Schwartz and walk away, but he chases them. They finally decide to hear Schwartz out because he's annoying and introduce themselves with fake names. Schwartz talks with Hinata and immediately gets charmed. He thinks that Jin must be her father who is looking for a worthy son-in-law to protect his daughter. Schwartz decides that he can only do one thing. He wants to prove he's strong enough to marry Hinata and challenges Jin. Schwartz strikes with his legendary sword and Jin grabs Hinata to protect her. The attack lands on one of the houses and it immediately gets sliced in half. Schwartz threatens them and pretends he has more powerful attacks. But in reality, this f***er never used this sword and is shaking from nervousness. His problem is that Jin wants to see how serious he can get. The two prepare for an intense duel. Suddenly, Lucius from the Vigilante Corps arrests Schwartz under the charge of property damage. Schwartz tries to run away, but Jin chases him down and cuffs him. The two prepare to head off, but Lucius asks them to willingly come to the station as witnesses. At the station, Lucius dismisses the rumors about heroes being called by the goddesses to defeat the Demon Lord. Schwartz shows a goddess crest to prove that he is a true hero. Everyone is surprised, even Lucius, who simply adds another charge for fraud. Yet, the Lord of the Land arrives and orders Lucius to free Schwartz. The Lord asks Schwartz to prove that he is a hero by going on a quest. Jin, Hinata, and Schwartz are supposed to deal with the robberies in the neighboring town. Lucius explains that if they help with solving the robberies, all of them will be declared innocent. Turns out a suit of living armor is reported to have been robbing people. They once deployed a suppression team, but guess what? That team ended up being robbed too. On the way, an armored warrior appears right in front of them. Schwartz prepares to attack, but Jin stops him because he could destroy the forest if he uses his sword. Schwartz decides to fight the armored warrior with sheathed sword instead. He matches the armored warriors, but he fails to dodge one of his attacks. In that second, the armored warrior strips Schwartz out. His clothes, his sword, everything is gone, eaten by the warrior. The armored warrior then looks his eyes on Hinata and wants her tiara. Lucius tells her to run away, and Hinata even thinks about giving the tiara away, but Jin stops her. Hinata thinks it's because Jin doesn't want her to lose her freedom to walk in town, but it's much more than that. Jin simply reveals it's worth 3 years of salary as a government worker. Lucius strikes the armored warrior with her sword, but he is unscathed. Lucius gets stripped of her clothes instead. The armored warrior introduces himself as Vizd, and he is one of the top officers of the Demon Lord's army. Lucius gets some new clothes from Hinata and explains her new plan to them. She will act as a decoy while everyone attacks Vizd. Hinata stops her because she thinks Lucius will end up with no clothes if she does that. She turns to Jin, who lends Hinata his coat. He can't stop himself from adoring how she looks with his clothes. Unlike most of you, Jin actually knows how a girl looks when she wears his shirt. That's when a status reveals he was charmed by Hinata again. Everyone mocks him because they think this is his fetish. Vizd gets tired of them ignoring him, so he launches an attack. Jin deflects the attack with a single slap. He scolds Hinata for thinking he would fetish or fall for her just because she wore his jacket. Hinata warns him that Viz has already gotten close to him and is about to attack. However, Jin easily dodges all of Vizd's attacks. Jin is a little distracted, causing Viz to land an attack on him, but he is unaffected by it. Viz thinks that if a direct hit and blow from his axe are ineffective, then he will have to absorb magical power and focus on his boosters. Vizd's armor gets enhanced, and he prepares to launch an attack while Jin is distracted. He slams his hands right into Vizd's face and immediately takes him down. Vizd's armor explodes, but Jin and Hinata are too distracted by their conversation to notice. They are interrupted when Vizd's human body comes out of the armor and she turns out to be a girl.
What?
The team goes back to the town to question Vizd. They take her to the basement and question her about the Demon Lord's location, but Vizd doesn't reply. The following morning, Schwartz tries to wake Hinata up and invite her to eat breakfast with him. However, he only finds Jin in the bedroom. Schwartz notices the door inside the bedroom and he rings the doorbell. Hinata answers from behind the door, telling him to head inside. Schwartz is surprised that there is a house inside the door. Hinata informs him that it is her house. Schwartz replies that there are a lot of things that make it look like a man lives there instead of a girl. And that's when he finds out Hinata is a 32-year-old dude whose pair was teleported once she came into this world. Jin and Hinata approach the Lord to thank him for letting them stay the night, but they learn that Vizd escaped. Lucius deduces that an ally came to help Vizd. Jin thinks that even after heading to a bigger town, they have learned nothing more about the Demon Lord. On the other hand, Hinata teaches Schwartz how to check his stats. The two check Schwartz's stats, but he hides his real name. However, they learn that he has tons of skills, even though he's also an average fighter. The three suddenly get interrupted when the sky crack open with a violet light. Schwartz accidentally uses one of his skills that summons the goddess of night, one of the 12 goddesses. The goddess asks Schwartz why she was summoned. Schwartz admits that he summoned her by accident. Lucius and the guards kneel down as they ask Schwartz to forgive them for not believing that he is a real hero. The goddess of night takes a closer look at Hinata and realizes that she is the hero chosen by the goddess of love. The goddess of night thinks the goddess of love is bending the rules by summoning two people. Schwartz wonders how the two ended up getting reincarnated together. The goddess points out that Schwartz was given his holy sword gram. He thought it was the strongest thing in the world that could cut through anything. The goddess explains that goddesses grant their heroes the weapons and abilities they desire. As it is a rule they must follow. Hinata gets excited to see her goddess, thinking that she might get an ultimate weapon. Jinguji realizes that the reason their goddess summoned them both is because Jinguji is Hinata's strongest weapon. Hinata refuses to admit that Jinguji is the strongest among everyone. The goddess of night leaves and Schwartz thanks her. One of the villagers then asks them if they are willing to live in their village with an endless supply of food and money. Schwartz happily agrees. Although Hinata is tempted with the villagers' offers, Jinguji declines. Hinata wonders why he refused such a generous offer, but he warns her that it isn't safe to let her stay in one place because their enemies would know their location. Hinata doesn't think it's a valid reason to refuse the villagers' offer. Jinguji points out that he wants the freedom to travel and enjoy their journey just like Hinata recommended. Hinata is finally convinced, so they leave the next day. The villagers hand them a map and bid farewell to them. They learn that it will take them 2 weeks before they reach the royal capital. While they are both running, they spot a carriage beside them where Lu is caged. They both act as if they didn't see anything because they are not snitches. At night, Hinata dreams of his childhood memory when he tripped at a forest and Jinguji comes to help him. Jinguji walks into Hinata's room where he sees her looking at their elementary graduation album. Hinata shows Jinguji that she once dreamt of being a cellophane tape when she turns 18. Jinguji wishes Hinata became a cellophane tape instead of a girl. They get into a fight because Jinguji keeps making fun of her cellophane tape dream. Hinata tries to see what embarrassing dream Jinguji has in her graduation album, but Jinguji swiftly scribbled all over it. The two continue traveling and Hinata chooses to ignore Jinguji. Jinguji scolds her for being too childish, but she wants him to think about what he did. Hinata tries to remember what Jinguji had written for his dream. Suddenly, a squid vendor stops them. He hands them grilled squid because he overheard that they were arguing. Hinata is about to eat the squid when the vendor notices her beauty. Jinguji is too busy trying to convince Hinata that they were both wrong. He doesn't notice that Hinata disappeared along with the squid vendor. Some tentacles were all he needed to get her to follow him. However, he just thinks that Hinata is playing a prank on him as a payback for scribbling on her elementary yearbook. Jinguji spots the carriage where they saw Lu earlier. He tries to search it, but he accidentally destroys it. He confronts Shen, the owner, apologizing for destroying his cart because he could not control his hands. He asks if Shen had an elf woman in his carriage earlier. Shen confirms and asks if he is looking for her. Jinguji is actually looking for Hinata. Shen warns him that if the girl he's looking for is beautiful, she might get sold off as a sacrifice. The town holds a festival where they are required to sacrifice beautiful people to their deity. Hinata gets taken along with Lu as a captive. Lu vows to take revenge on Hinata, now that she has found her after searching for so long. She reminds Hinata that the villagers only picked her because she charmed them. She feels competitive and thinks that their captors obviously prefer her beauty. She is interrupted when one of their captors proposes to Hinata, saying he would forsake his village for her. Lu frees herself out of anger. She challenges Hinata to a beauty contest, but she loses once again. Jinguji gets taken to a fishing location. The town had always been poor for some time, but thanks to the sudden appearance of a giant squid, the catch suddenly became plentiful. However, they say that it asked for a living sacrifice as compensation. The deity requires the sacrifice to be a beautiful but feisty female. Jinguji decides to take the deity down, but if he does, the people will have a dry fishing season. Shen informs him both Lu and Hinata were captured because the villager who presents the most beautiful candidate will become the next village head. Jinguji wonders why Shen keeps on following him because he doesn't have money to compensate him. Shen just feels guilty about the taking Lu as a sacrifice. Shen leads him to a deserted warehouse where Hinata might be. They open the door to the warehouse only to find Lu. They save Lu and take her home for dinner. Jinguji asks Lu about Hinata's whereabouts. Lu warns him that Hinata won't be able to see the next sunrise. Jinguji gets angry and demands to know Hinata's location. Lu offers him a truce. She promises to help him as long as he will help her too. She informs her that the humans in the village revere the squid as their god. If he kills that god in front of them, the festival will get wrecked and the village will be in chaos. Shen agrees that interfering with the festival is a good idea, but it will be impossible to defeat the huge squid underwater. Jinguji brushes off their concerns and is determined to find an opportunity to take out the squid. He wants Lu to lend him a hand to take down the god, and he makes her promise to keep her word. Lu is enchanted with Jinguji's reliability. She agrees to help him take down the squid. Jinguji and Lu head to the sea, and he ties Lu's body, along with floaters. He explains that his plan is to use Lu as a bait as they fish for squid. He tosses Lu right into the water body to execute the plan. Lu swears not to trust a human again. 3 hours later, Lu is still acting as a bait in the sea, but they haven't caught anything. A kid approaches them and mocks them for foolishly fishing for squid in the daylight. He informs them that squids are nocturnal. The sun sets and Lu suddenly gets surrounded by the huge squid's tentacle. Jinguji and Shen notice that the squid has eaten Lu. Jinguji celebrates that the squid took their bait. Hinata is caged somewhere else and is forcing herself to just admire the sunset. Squid members appear and she freaks out because it's time for the sacrifice. She assures herself that it's only against a huge squid. She just needs to put up a serious fight and she will have a chance to win. However, reality hits her that she won't be able to beat it because of its huge size. She remembers how she ignored Jinguji and regrets having a fight with him. She gets reminded of the time she begged Jinguji to help her with studies, and they ended up fighting, so Jinguji didn't talk to her for a week. Hinata realizes that if she cannot count on Jinguji's rescue, she will have to make a move herself. She gets an idea of charming the men to cause confusion and use the chance to escape. She shakes her head desperately in an attempt to remove her tiara. She ends up getting out of the cage, but her tiara is successfully removed. All the men get a look in her eyes and call her a goddess. Jinguji gets pulled by the squid's huge size. He feels that his strength is failing. He wonders if he has done anything to make himself weaker. He suddenly notices the noise behind him. Hinata is climbing the huge statue of the squid while all the girls in the village want to sacrifice her immediately. They accuse her of charming and seducing their husbands. The men in the village all ask her to marry them. Squid members remind the villagers that Hinata is a sacrifice to their god. However, the women in the village still blame her for enchanting their husbands with her beauty. Hinata decides she has made up her mind. She swears not to follow the traditions of the village. She is disappointed in the village's hospitality because they offer visitors as sacrifices. Jinguji gains back his strength after getting closer to Hinata and effortlessly pulls the squid out of the sea as he heads towards her. Hinata informs Jinguji that her arms are at their limit. She begs Jinguji to do something about the villagers. He uses his strength to throw the squid towards its statue in the village. The squid's head lands right on top of the statue, which takes it out. All the villagers cry at the sight of their dying god. The squid sees Hinata and uses its tentacles to grab her. The squid prepares to have Hinata as its last supper, but she stops it with her legs. Lu is still inside the mouth of the squid and she grabs Hinata's legs. She wants to take Hinata down with her, but Hinata informs her the squid is about to be defeated. Jinguji tosses a knife to Lu. She saves Hinata and slices the squid to pieces. Lu takes a torch from one of the villagers and burns the squid and its statue. She feasts on the grilled squid. She invites the villagers to eat with her. The squid members admit defeat and declares they cannot continue sacrificing a person's life to a squid monster. Lu gets voted as the next village head. Hinata levels up. She gets another paper bag that covers her face to avoid another chaos. Jinguji forces Hinata to take out a small bunny for lunch. He claims they have no choice because they have to survive. Hinata sulks in the corner and apologizes to the dead bunny. Jinguji chops its meat and Shen sympathizes with Hinata because it was her first game. Hinata wonders why Shen is traveling with them. Shen just responds that he wants to tag along until they reach the royal capital. Jinguji broke his cart and his crocodile ran away, so his only means of transportation is walking. Hinata notices that her charm does not work on Shen. Hinata wonders if it is okay that they left Lu behind. Jinguji thinks that a woman like that will always look for an opportunity to get her revenge. He's glad she didn't accompany them. The two check their stats and Hinata gets frustrated because only her luck increased. Jinguji points that her physical strength might not increase at all. He explains that after beating the first monster, he was the only one who gained XP. However, during the fight with the squid, Hinata's level went up even if it was Lu who defeated it. Jinguji guesses close contact to the enemy is the key to gaining XP. Hinata feels bad about the bunny, but she can't help eating the delicious meal. She goes back to her house, but she notices Jinguji followed her. Jinguji responds that she might get abducted if he takes his eyes off of her. He can't let his guard down because the last time he did that, Hinata got in trouble. However, Hinata shoves him out of her house. Jinguji asks Shen about his intentions. He sees Shen's stats and learns that he is a high-level assassin, which is unusual for a regular trader. Shen responds that he wants to accompany them, but Jinguji senses bloodlust. He wonders if his target is Hinata. Jinguji prepares to attack, but Shen claims that if he meant to harm them, he would have put something in their food earlier. Jinguji tries to move, but he starts feeling dizzy. It turns out Shen put something in their food. Jinguji uses his last strength and starts a duel with Shen. Hinata gets out of her house and finds Shen defeated. Jinguji warns Hinata not to come close and informs her that Shen drugged them. He asks Hinata to run, but she worries she might not see Jinguji again if they get separated. Hinata apologizes for having a weaker body and only causing trouble. Shen suddenly interrupts them, saying he does not find Hinata cute. He dismisses their accusations of targeting Hinata because he has never thought of selling her as a slave. Hinata gets frustrated with Shen's revelations. Hinata decides to use her charm because Jinguji is drugged. Shen gets angry at her attempt, mocking her about trying to entice him with her body. Shen claims it only makes his hatred rise up. Hinata realizes that it's Jinguji who is being targeted instead of her. Shen knocks out Hinata so he can touch massage. However, Jinguji thinks he is being tortured instead. Shen informs them that his family has knowledge about the secret pressure points of the body. He couldn't turn away from Jinguji's level of fatigue, that's why he wanted to treat Jinguji badly. The three continue their travel and Jinguji feels more relaxed. Jinguji declares that if they feel even a little bit tired, they should take a break. They arrive at the royal capital. Shen informs them that they cannot go in because of a war recently. He offers to help them go inside the capital in exchange for becoming their tour guide. They successfully head inside, and they find the goddess of love and beauty's temple. Jinguji claims if they are able to find the prophecy of their goddess, they might be able to find information on the demon lord. A priestess welcomes them to the temple and Jinguji is surprised by how the priestess looked so perfectly respectable and polite. He expects them to have no dignity, just like their goddess. The priestess compliments Hinata's beauty. She is perfectly suited to serve their goddess. Jinguji, Hinata, and the priestess head inside the temple. They will need to change into the order's clothing. However, the clothes turn out to be just underwear. The priestess adds that it is their official dress and only those wearing it are permitted to enter their place of worship. Jinguji reminds Hinata that their objective is to gather information about the demon lord. The two are left with no choice and they change into the official cloth. However, Jinguji wears it under his suit, but Hinata wears the underwear only. They get into an argument with Hinata thinking Jinguji wants to humiliate her. Jinguji informs the priestess that he is reluctant to show his skin, but the priestess agrees to let him wear it inside. The priestess gives Hinata her robe to cover herself. The place of worship actually turns out to be a nighttime pool event. Jinguji is disappointed that the temple turned out the way he thought it would. The priestess invites them into faith. She forces Hinata to take off the robe, but the priestess finds the crest of their goddess in her body. The worshippers get mad at Hinata thinking she is mocking their religion. The priestess informs her that those who put their goddess crest on their body should be whipped and sent to a prison island as a punishment. The worshippers call Hinata a criminal and Jinguji saves her. He lends her his coat to cover her body. He announces that they did not want the crest to be carved in their body, but they had no choice. Jinguji insults the temple and the goddess. The priestess asks the worshippers to prepare their weapons. The worshippers attack Jinguji, but he beat them all up in an instant. The priestess casts a spell, but Jinguji grabs her even before she could finish it. He drops the priestess because he didn't come to fight. Suddenly, the head of the city's intelligence unit, Miria, appears. She announces that Jinguji and Hinata are heroes summoned by the goddess. She forbids anyone from interfering with them. Miria brings the two to the palace and shows them the map of the world. They are considered royalty because they were blessed by the goddess. She explains that the goddess of love and beauty created the kingdom's royal family. The first king received her blessing, and her crest only appears upon the bodies of those who inherit the same blessing. The three arrive in front of the king's room. The king welcomes them, but Hinata feels uncomfortable and wants to go home immediately. The two are left with no choice but to bow down to the king. Jinguji hints at Hinata to remove her tiara so she can use her charm at the king. Hinata takes off her tiara, but it does nothing to the king or to his guards. The king learns that the two are unaware of the goddess's prophecy, so he sings it to them. He then explains that the lyrics of the song means that the goddess summoned a beautiful woman to the city as a hero. The people were instructed to lead the heroes bearing the goddess crest to safety. The king declares them heroes summoned by their goddess and encourages them to defeat the demon lord before anyone else. And for that purpose, the kingdom will support them endlessly. Jinguji asks what kind of support will the kingdom provide. The king talks about handing everything in the kingdom's treasury. Hinata realizes it must be her charm working. Hinata asks Jinguji to acknowledge her looks too. Jinguji calmly responds that her face can be very handy, but it is not his type. Hinata continues to demand for compliments. Miria interrupts them and informs them of the banquet happening. Jinguji blushes upon seeing Hinata at the banquet. He starts imagining their whole life together. Jinguji wakes up from his thoughts and panics. He bans Hinata from entering the banquet. Miria accompanies Hinata outside. She claims there's nothing they can do since Jinguji ordered the knights to stop the nobles from getting close to Hinata. Jinguji delivers food to Hinata outside. She asks for alcohol, but he worries she might run off to the forest like last time. Shen appears and makes Hinata jealous of his alcohol. Jinguji grabs Hinata and scolds her for being too careless because she knows he will always protect her. Miria tries to stop Jinguji from going too far because they are at a banquet. Jinguji refuses, telling her that Hinata's conduct lately has been intolerable. Hinata gets tired of Jinguji's endless scolding and runs off to the palace. Hinata realizes that she overreacted when Jinguji was just warning her for her own sake. She starts noticing Jinguji's attractiveness and reminds herself that she shouldn't crush on a fellow male. She turns around and spots the princess who looks just like her type. Yugrain is the royal princess and she is attempting to jump to freedom. Hinata stops her from jumping. Yugrain refuses to stop. Hinata talks to Yugrain about Jinguji. She is worried that she can't do anything for him at all. She wants to use the banquet to help him, but instead she only made him angry. Yugrain assumes that she's depressed because she failed to get Jinguji to fall for her. She calls her situation hopeless, but thanks her for the distraction which stopped her from becoming a human pancake. Hinata feels good about spending time with the beautiful princess. Later, Jinguji tries to talk to Hinata, but she is still thinking about Yugrain. Yugrain suddenly enters their room. She learns that Hinata is the hero. She apologizes for acting so impolite towards her. Yugrain asks Hinata to take her on their journey to defeat the demon lord. Jinguji interrupts and declines Yugrain's request. He explains that their journey is too dangerous. He asks why does she want to travel with them. Before Yugrain can answer, Hinata stops him from interrogating her. She knows Yugrain has a reason she can't tell them. She also worries that Yugrain might try to end her life again. The three head to ask the king for permission, but he refuses because Yugrain has to attend to her official duties. He also reminds her that she is still like a child who can't sleep without her favorite towel. The king asks for Hinata's opinion. Jinguji answers instead, saying they think Yugrain's duties should come first. The king scolds Yugrain for asking for childish things. Yugrain loses her cool and insults both Jinguji and the king. Hinata tries to run after her, but Jinguji stops her. However, she ignores him and demands not to be followed. Hinata visits Yugrain in her room and finds her venting her anger. Yugrain explains that she does not have the freedom to leave the castle. The king is very overprotective towards her ever since her mother died. She does not have friends and has never had the opportunity to touch grass. She thinks her life is pointless. Hinata realizes she can't leave the princess because she sees Jinguji in her. Hinata promises Yugrain that if there's something she wants to do, she will make it into a reality. Yugrain starts a rebellion and Hinata is forced to support her like she promised. The rebel army calls for a new ruler and the establishment of democracy. The king settles on the plan to use the intelligence unit to capture Yugrain in secret. Miria is forced to agree with the plan. The king gets the news that Miria fails to restrain the rebel army but was captured instead. The civilians start protesting about the ongoing rebellion. Yugrain uses her beauty to win the citizens to her side. Hinata goes up on stage and charms even more people. Yugrain's head maid suggests she cause an armed riot. She refuses because she doesn't want the citizens to get hurt. She wants to capture the castle without hurting anyone. Hinata changes into her usual clothes. She plans to run away from Yugrain because she does not want to get involved with the rebellion anymore. However, when she exits the changing room, she is welcomed by the charmed citizens. She realizes she needs to find her tiara first. She doesn't know its location, so she enters a random room in search of it. She finds Miria tied up inside the room. She gets shocked and proceeds to help Miria free herself. She then invites Hinata to escape with her because Jinguji is worried. Hinata is reluctant because she knows Jinguji will scold her for leaving with the princess in the first place. She gets distracted with her thoughts and unknowingly ties Miria to the ceiling. The rebel army hears some noise coming from the tent. Hinata apologizes and leaves Miria so she doesn't get caught. The army sees Hinata and starts chasing her. Hinata realizes that things have gotten complicated. She just can't do something without Jinguji's help. She remembers how her classmates would call her a bother to Jinguji. She is interrupted when the head maid enters the room. The head maid offers to give her a slimy massage to relieve her exhaustion. She assures Hinata that it's because of her the princess wishes have come true. Hinata starts crying after being comforted. The head maid warns her that she is always in danger because her body is a curse from the goddess, not a gift. She cannot do anything because of her weak body. The head maid leads her into thinking that she is not at fault and the goddess is to blame for everything. The head maid touches Hinata's crest and starts brainwashing her. She makes Hinata jealous of Jinguji. Even though she is supposed to be the hero, Jinguji is stealing her spotlight. She orders Hinata to stay away from Jinguji so she can teach her a method to get stronger. Hinata dreams of his childhood. He was always getting bullied by his classmates, so he never had fun. He wished for someone to intervene. Jinguji came to his rescue, and that was the start of their friendship. They got into the same class, but Jinguji was always alone. He started noticing how strong Jinguji was. Hinata suddenly realizes that he has always been jealous of Jinguji. Hinata wakes up from her dream, and she feels more relieved after the head maid's treatment. The king hires Schwartz for assistance. He thanks Schwartz for coming all the way. He quickly explains that the country is thrown into a critical situation because of the rebellion led by Ukraine. Every village and fortress where she gave a speech joined her side and have now grown into a large army. However, there is a neighboring country that they have been in at war with for years. They have no choice but to focus their armies there, so they have very little army to spare to suppress the rebellion. The king resorts to his last choice, which is to have Schwartz save the country. Schwartz happily agrees without hesitation, but Lucius takes him aside for a scolding. Lucius reminds Schwartz not to answer without thinking, because there's a chance that someone would use his position as a hero against him. Schwartz explains that the riots will endanger people. He wants to help those who are in need with his powers. Lucius feels sentimental by how much Schwartz have grown. She lets Schwartz do what he wants. Schwartz faces the faction and starts panicking. He doesn't know what to do, so Lucius advises him to talk things out with the rebel army. Schwartz tries to introduce himself confidently to the faction, but Lucius gets in his way and starts scolding them. She asks them to back down or face the wrath of the king. The faction does not get scared and instead mock Lucius. The faction declares that they have a mission to bring down the royal capital. Lucius orders Schwartz to use his sword. He feels hesitant about actually fighting people with his sword, but Lucius scolds him for always fearing the power of his sword. She mentions his sword's power should not control him, but he should control it. The faction starts heading towards Schwartz to attack him. However, Schwartz cuts through their clothes and their resolve with just a stroke of his sword. He happily celebrates the true power of his sword. The faction has no choice but to turn their bare backs and retreat. The two head back to the king to report, and Schwartz is happy about the king's compliment. He notices Jinguji sitting and happily informs him about his victory. Jinguji replies dryly, and Schwartz realizes Jinguji is lifeless because Hinata is missing. Schwartz suspects that he must feel depressed because Hinata left him. Jinguji quickly denies. He doesn't care that Hinata chose Ukraine over him. Schwartz then accuses Jinguji of being jealous. Jinguji gets angry and declares he can't be jealous of another man. The head maid talks to Vizd and reveals that she took advantage of Hinata's skills. She increased the power of her charm, which weakened Hinata. She guesses that the kingdom must be busy dealing with the rioters so they can use that chance to take control of power. A knight interrupts and the head maid quickly hides Vizd. He reports that they lost their rebel force in the capital. They all have returned to their regular lives of plowing fields. The knight also reports that the men lost all their memories of the last few days. The head maid quickly brainstorms another plan with Vizd. She realizes it will be pointless because their charm can easily be broken. The head maid starts to break down, remembering all the hard work she has put into her plan. From doing the chores every day to rising all the way to being a head maid, she has done everything to gather information and make a plan. However, she failed to notice a human in the kingdom who could undo mind control. She decides to take things into her own hands and just blow up the kingdom. The head maid leads Ukraine and Hinata to the kingdom's underground weapons storage. She mentions that their plans were failed, so they have to rely on their last resort. Ukraine starts to feel guilty about using the kingdom's defenses for her own purposes because she would rather use a less harmful alternative. The head maid proceeds to brainwash her, reminding her of all the struggle she went through alone in the kingdom. She touches Ukraine's crest and pushes her to unlock the first door. She guides Hinata to unlock the second door. The head maid knocks Ukraine out because she has no further use for her. Vizd forces Hinata inside a hidden chamber in the room so she can be used as a power source. The head maid turns the switch on. Jinguji and Schwartz notice a huge robot coming out to the city. Lucius shares that it is the guardian deity of their kingdom. The robot's face suddenly expands and a huge beam comes out of it. The king witnesses the whole thing and wonders why their guardian deity is attacking their own city. The king informs them the deity is called Mapon and it was a gift given to them by their goddess for their protection. Jinguji realizes it is Ugrain and Hinata who let Mapon out, which surprises him because Hinata would never do such a thing intentionally. Vizd controls Mapon and the head maid controls the direction. Mapon prepares to shoot another beam. Schwartz, Lucius, and the king run away, but Jinguji stays behind. He takes it as a duty to stop Mapon. Schwartz decides to stay behind with him, realizing they are probably the only ones in the kingdom who can stop it. Jinguji suddenly asks Schwartz to do it all by himself because he lost his supernatural powers after being separated from Hinata. Schwartz starts to freak out. Shen encourages him to be a hero because the lives of the villagers are in his hand. Mapon fires the beam and Schwartz uses his sword to cut through it. Vizd praises them for stopping Mapon's attack. Schwartz becomes more determined to defeat the deity after learning they are facing the Demon Lord's forces. Vizd warns them not to attack Mapon because they could hurt Hinata. Vizd fires another beam, but she misses. The head maid scolds her for going easy on their enemies. They could have easily defeated them with repeated fire. Vizd counters that Mapon can't shoot beams repeatedly. She adds that she used the beams to buy time so the enemies don't notice the deity's weakness. The head maid also scolds her for revealing Hinata's location to the enemy. Jinguji and Schwartz jump off the building to run away from the beam. Jinguji reveals that he provoked Vizd on purpose to make her target them instead of the city. He figured out Vizd plans. He knows she was trying to buy time because Mapon can't shoot continuously. Jinguji shares his plan to use the time to get close to Hinata so he would be able to help fight. Shen hands them a crocodile. Hinata wakes up and sees the situation of the kingdom from the Mapon. Jinguji and Schwartz use the crocodile to get close to Mapon. Schwartz protects them with his sword by stopping the incoming beams. Vizd doesn't want Jinguji to get close to Hinata so he doesn't regain his powers. She decides to use the strongest power of Mapon. Mapon stops shooting beams and tries to step on Jinguji and Schwartz. Hinata speaks from inside and Jinguji gets shocked. She steals control of Mapon from Vizd. Jinguji asks her to come down, but she refuses because she now has incredible power. She swears to defeat Jinguji. She accuses him of looking down on her because she is powerless. She proceeds to mention how he is always popular with women. Their bosses' wives even like him because he's good at work. We don't know which type of work though. Hinata feels strong for the first time in her life. She now has the courage to stand up to Jinguji. Schwartz suggests they fight their way into Mapon and rescue Hinata. Jinguji thinks it's a bad idea because his strength hasn't returned despite being so close to Hinata. He realizes their distance doesn't have to do anything about his strength. He also notices that their stats have stopped appearing. Hinata suddenly attacks the two with Mapon. She declares that her issue with Jinguji is she wants to be praised. She points out that everyone always overlooks her whenever they are together. She decides to get stronger than him to make him praise her. Schwartz encourages Jinguji to praise Hinata. Jinguji calls Hinata cool, but she knows he doesn't mean to, so she shoots a beam at him. Jinguji uses his skill to summon the door to Hinata's house and uses it as a shield. Hinata continues to express her jealousy towards Jinguji because she has never been praised like him. She also thinks that Jinguji doesn't see anything to praise her about. Hinata starts crying and admits she doesn't have anything, and the only thing she can brag about is having Jinguji as her friend. Jinguji chooses not to dodge as Hinata attacks, but Schwartz shoves him out of the way. He apologizes to Hinata for making her feel so tormented. However, he claims that he doesn't know how to praise anyone because he has never done it since he was born. Hinata shoots continuous beams, but Schwartz deflects it all. Jinguji is busy lamenting about being a crappy person who hurt people by not knowing how to praise. He decides it's better for him to disappear from Hinata's sight to avoid causing her more pain. Schwartz reminds him that Hinata is proud to have him as a friend. He's certain Hinata would regret it if they split apart while she's clouded by her emotions. He begs Jinguji to compliment Hinata sincerely from the bottom of his heart. Jinguji feels weird trying to compliment someone else, but Schwartz insists he has to for the sake of the kingdom. Jinguji still denies that he's jealous of Hinata's relationship with the princess. Schwartz makes him realize that even between guys, jealousy is normal. Jinguji was raised to hide his feelings so he doesn't look vulnerable, but he now admits that it's normal for guys to be jealous of each other. Hinata punches Jinguji with Mifon, but this time, he blocks it with one hand. Jinguji decides it's finally time to let himself be honest with his best friend. Hinata prepares to launch another attack, but she is stopped when Jinguji admits he is envious of her. He always has people around him and is always surrounded by smiles. Even if she shares that she doesn't have anything to be praised about, Jinguji thinks she has better qualities than him. Hinata gets carried away with Jinguji's words, but the head maid brainwashes her into thinking Jinguji doesn't mean what he is saying. Hinata accuses Jinguji of mocking her, admits how deeply jealous she was of him. She confesses she has always wanted to be like Jinguji. Hinata breaks the head maid's control over her by pulling out her magic. Mephon loses control, and its settings changes to annihilation of all life forms within the vicinity. Mephon detects all the humans nearby and places a target on them. Jinguji asks for Schwartz's assistance. He strikes his sword, which severs Mephon's arms. Jinguji heads towards Mephon's body and lands a strong punch. He opens the robot and sees Hinata inside. He wakes her up and finds her crying. Hinata regrets putting Jinguji and the kingdom in danger. She scolds herself for being used by the head maid. Jinguji shares how he truly feels about Hinata. He details how amazing she is, the way she is considerate towards people, and how she pays attention to the feelings of detail-oriented people makes her a person of good character. He continues to praise Hinata endlessly, mentioning all the good things about her. Hinata is stunned with how Jinguji endlessly points out her good traits. Jinguji finally ends with rating Hinata higher than anyone else he knows. He confesses that once he starts praising her, he's unable to stop anymore. Hinata starts getting embarrassed from all the praises and asks Jinguji to stop. He invites Hinata to go back with him. They go out of Mephon, and it's suddenly announced that it will self-destruct in a few seconds. They escape Mapon before it self-destructs. They head to the kingdom, and Hinata bows to the king. She apologizes for kidnapping Ugrain and encouraging her to do the rebellion. The king stands up and apologizes instead to Hinata. Ugrain points out humans are allowed to make mistakes, but Hinata knows she's just trying to avoid blame. Jinguji stops them from seeking a person to blame. He thinks that once they start pointing fingers, there will be no end to it. All the blame should rest on the head maid since she named herself one of the Demon Lord's subordinates and took Vizd with her. Jinguji adds that they must defeat the Demon Lord as quickly as possible. The two decide to leave the following morning because the Demon Lord's forces already know where they are. Ugrain feels sad because Hinata is her first friend. Hinata reassures her she's capable of making more friends. Hinata thinks they have come so far, but they still don't know the Demon Lord's location. Schwartz overhears their conversation. He confesses he knew the Demon Lord's location all along. The Demon Castle is located at the big white sparkle they see in the sky. Jinguji and Hinata continue their journey the following day. Schwartz and Lucius decide to part ways with them. Shen tags along with them. Jinguji and Hinata suddenly get embarrassed from looking at each other. They start imagining their wedding and future life if Hinata remains a female. They must have a voice in their head saying, "It's no homo if Hinata can get pregnant." They swear to defeat the demon and break the curse so that never happens.